Hello, we have till now talked about what business communication is, why is it important, what is international and intercultural business communication, and we have touched upon the various aspects of communicative competence. Today I will finish communicative competence and I will briefly touch upon the communicative identities and what the function of identities in communicative competence. Okay, so let's revise what we have covered so far. We have talked about context and competence, and I had asked you to think about why context is important in competence, and I can give you two very relevant examples that most of you are familiar with, or probably all of you are familiar with. None of us is immune to fashion and the entertainment industry. The definition of what is fashionable changes with time. What people perceived to be fashionable 10 years ago is no longer in fashion, is no longer considered appropriate. So, the interpretation of a fashionable dress or a fashionable hairstyle or fashionable shoes or fashionable bags has changed over time. And similarly, in the entertainment industry, what our grandparents considered to be appropriate and good entertainment is no longer the case. Even with our parents, even with me, what I think is good entertainment is not what maybe those of you who are in your early 20s would think is good entertainment. And you know, I feel strange because maybe the age difference between you and me wouldn't be that great, but what I was trained to believe was maybe good music or good movies or good reading is probably not what you think is good anymore. So the competence of the creator of these entertainment programs, the competence of the creator of these fashionable artifacts is something that you people decide. The users of the fashion artifacts, the receivers of the entertainment, the receivers of the creative expression decide who a competent communicator is, and your definitions of competence in that communication change with time. What you thought was good, say maybe 5 years ago, is probably outdated today. What you thought was good clothing, good hairstyle, the in thing maybe even 2 years ago is no longer appropriate, and you feel, well, what was I thinking when I termed that as nice looking or fun or entertaining. So that is where context plays a very important role. The second thing we talked about was attribution theories, and I had asked you to identify your own biases and identify how you attribute your experiences with your in-group and out-group members. Who do you attribute these experiences to? I had also asked you to think about what makes you tick as a communicator. I had asked you to introspect and list the intrapersonal factors that motivate you to keep going in your interactions in different situations. And I had asked you to think about communicative competence. We had talked about interpretive competence as suggested by Trenholm and Jensen, and intercultural competence as suggested by Spitzberg, and we were talking about the model of intercultural competence proposed by Spitzberg. Okay. Now, let's move on. We had talked about this model of intercultural competence, and in this model I had told you that there are three parts to this model. There is an actor, there is a co-actor, and there is the episode right here. Okay. So as far as the actor is concerned, if you look at the slide very closely, there are three things in the actor's personality: the knowledge functions, motivation, and skills that contribute to how well the actor reacts or how well the actor behaves in an episode of communication. This is the episode right here, okay. And then these things in turn contribute to what the co-actor starts expecting of the actor, that defines the outcomes or the efficacy of the outcomes, how much affection is transmitted, control, inclusion, pleasure, relaxation, rituals, etc. These things in turn contribute to the co-actor's knowledge functions, how well what the co-actor knows, how the co-actor perceives what is being transmitted, how the co-actor processes and analyzes and reacts to what is being transmitted. This in turn feeds into the motivation, the outcomes, and the knowledge functions together contribute to the motivation, and the outcomes also contribute to the further use of skills that the person already has. So, composure, interaction management, alter centrism, which is focusing on the other person's needs and goals of the communication, and expressiveness, and that feeds into the communication episode or the interaction episode with the same actor. Now, I am using the words actor and co-actor here instead of sender and receiver, but for the sake of simplicity, I know it's oversimplifying, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say the actor is the person who sent the message first, and the co-actor is the person who was the first recipient of the message, and then this sending and receiving goes on, sender, receiver, sender, receiver, sender, receiver, and all these things sort of happen here. This is the episode of interaction, and every message that is sent is being influenced by all of these things and all of these things. And these things here, the motivation, skill and knowledge functions and their interactions are contributing within a context, which is culture, place, type, relations, purpose. They are contributing to the intra and interpersonal context of the actor, and this is a mirror image. So, on the co-actor side, even though this is a different set, but these are the headings that we can classify the intra and interpersonal context of the co-actor. And so, these things, the intra and interpersonal context of the actor and co-actor are actually interacting here. It is not a simple sending and receiving of a message. It is the interactions of the intra, and this is the intrapersonal context, and this is the interpersonal context. So, this is the interaction of the intra and interpersonal context of the actor and co-actor. So, it's really a mess over here, to be very honest. This is a chaos of the, I would call it a collision of these intra and interpersonal contexts. Please take a minute to figure out what these things could be, and just read the model and try and understand it. It's just so many things. You are influenced by so many things in your environment. You're influenced by so many things that are going on in your mind that are in turn being influenced by the environment, and whatever the way you react with your environment, even before you react to the recipient of your message, is going to have an impact of what happens in the environment and how the environment responds to you. Okay? All right. According to Spitzberg, this model portrays the process of dyadic interaction. Dyadic interaction is interaction between two units. So, the model portrays the process of dyadic interaction as a function of two individuals' motivation to communicate, knowledge of communication in that context, and skills in implementing their motivation and knowledge within a particular context, within each person's own specific unique context. So, let us not lose sight of this little thing here, you know, this little portion here, that is context. Everything is happening in contexts, and the more similar the contexts, the more similar the intrapersonal contexts could be. These are the intrapersonal contexts. They could be, I'm not saying they will be, but a similarity in context definitely eases up whatever happens here. Even though these things may be different, but it certainly eases up what happens here. It certainly aids to making whatever happens here very as effective as possible, or it has a positive, the similarity in the context has a positive influence on whatever happens in this region. Okay, we had talked about the systems in relational competence. We had talked about the individual system last time. Today we will talk about the episodic system and the relational system. The episodic system includes those features of a particular actor that facilitate competence impressions on the part of a specific co-actor in a specific episode of interaction. Please read this. Once again, it includes those features of a particular actor that facilitate competence impressions, not competence but the impression of competence on the part of a specific co-actor in a specific episode of interaction. So, what Spitzberg is really trying to say is that competence is episode specific and co-actor and actor specific. Even if both actors are the same in different episodes, even if you have the same actor and the same co-actor in two different episodes, the competence perceived will depend upon the episode in which they are interacting with each other. So, this is really what episodic system focuses on. Now, as the actor's communicative status increases, the co-actor's impression of the actor's competence increases. What do you mean by communicative status? Communicative status is really the impression of how well the actor communicates, and it happens on both sides. When we say actor, the co-actor could become the actor when the co-actor is responding. So, it's sender and receiver on both sides, and of course, you know, whoever these things are interchangeable, but this is applicable to both the actor and the co-actor. As the actor's communicative status increases, the co-actor's impression of the actor's competence increases, and the actor's communicative status is dependent upon, in turn, an increase in the actor's motivation, knowledge and skills will in turn lead to positive, will give a positive reinforcement to the actor, which will increase the adaptation and the refinement of the interactions between the actor and the co-actor. This will in turn enhance the skills of the actor in the interaction with the co-actor. So, if the actor's motivation and knowledge and skills are going up, the actor perceives that his or her motivation, knowledge and skills are better than they were in a previous interaction, and this makes the actor feel better. There is a positive reinforcement within the actor. There is also a positive reinforcement as far as the co-actor is concerned. So, the actor feels better about it, and that helps the actor increase the manner in which he or she refines the communication event the next time. So, there is more adaptation. You feel, okay, I have done well in this situation, maybe I should do a little bit more of the same thing. So, I adjust to the situation, I modify my communicative style, and I refine and fine tune whatever I am saying. I refine and fine tune what I understand about the situation. I refine my skills, I maybe clean up my language, I make lesser grammatical mistakes, I think more about, I become more alter centric and I feel good about it, and that helps me refine things and do things the way the co-actor needs me to do those things. Don't go on, you know, the extremes of ethnocentric or alter-centric, but just start adjusting. If I am too alter-centric and the co-actor does not respond favorably, maybe I become a little bit more ethnocentric and I become, you know, I start talking a little bit more about myself. That leads to an enhancement of my skill in the interaction with the co-actor. So I learn from my mistakes. You know, all of these things boil down to things we have been hearing since our childhoods. Learn from your mistakes, learn from your interactions, and that helps me not make those mistakes the next time I interact with the co-actor, and the relationship becomes more less hassle-free, less messy, clearer. Okay. The second part here is the contextual obstruction of the actor's performance, which means that we succeed at communication despite the success at communication despite the contextual obstructions or handicaps leads to a better impression in the co-actor's mind, or an impression in the co-actor's mind that we are communicatively competent. So if I am able to succeed despite the noise, despite distractions, despite if I have some sort of a disability, if I was coughing, if you noticed in the past 3 lectures, I was coughing, and if I am able to get my point across, and if I am able to talk without letting my throat infection interfere with the delivery of this lecture, or with all these lights, you know, you probably don't realize that in this kind of a recording there's big lights in this room, and I wish I could show you those lights, but there are these huge lights shining at you, and that can be quite distracting. And if the first lecture I was a little jittery, I was actually quite shaky, but as time went along I learned to ignore the impact of these bright lights shining on my head, and the fact that I am talking to an empty classroom right now, the fact that anyone could be listening to this, the fact that this lecture could be used for my promotions, who knows what. So if I learn to ignore those intrapersonal distractions and I still get my point across, and you would feel that maybe I am better, I am getting better at my communication, because the contextual obstruction in my performance is sort of ignored, and I am succeeding despite these contextual distractions in my environment. The next thing is the actor's achievement of valuable outcomes. This is pretty self-explanatory. An actor is perceived as competent if the actor is able to achieve whatever he or she set out to achieve, and the number of those achievements actually counts towards this part right here. So valued outcomes. So this is what this is the number of times you succeed at your communicative events. What you need to get done gets done. So that is perceived as your ability to get things done, your ability to communicate well in a manner, communicate in a manner that gets things done. And the last point here in the episodic system is the actor's extant attributed communicative status. We perceive some actors to be able to communicate well because of who they are. We say, okay, you are a teacher, you have to talk to maybe 80 to 100 students several times a week or several times a day, you would be good at communication. You are a preschool teacher, you would be good with little children, even outside of the classroom situation. You are a lawyer, you would be good at diplomatic communication. So, you know, we attribute certain things. You are a doctor, you would be good at empathetic communication. So, you are able to convey a sense of relief to your patients. So, you would be a warm and nice person. Of course, most of the doctors I have met are very, very warm and nice, and they really make you feel comfortable. So, we assume that, you know, if you are in these roles, you, by virtue of being in these roles, you would be very good at communication. So, it is the extant attributed communicative status, and that feeds into the episodic system, that feeds into the co-actor's impression about the actor's competence in communication. That is what we are really talking about here. Another thing is that the co-actor's impression of the actor's competence is a function of the actor's fulfillment of the co-actor's expectations, which in turn depend upon a few things. So, this is really, you know, one is I am assuming you to be a good communicator. I understand that you are a good communicator. Another thing that will help me believe that you are a good communicator is whether you are able to understand what I am asking you to do or not, whether you're able to respond in a manner that I want you to respond to me. So, and that in turn depends upon the actor's fulfillment of positive co-actor expectancies, which is if the co-actor wants me to, has a positive expectation from me. I am a teacher, I am supposed to talk in a manner that is clear, and if you listen to this lecture and you say, okay, she was communicating in a clear manner, then my goal is achieved. Okay, and so that is one. The actor's normative violation of the co-actor's negative expectancies, which is the actors when a co-actor feels that, okay, for some reason you will not be able to communicate well, you've had a bad throat, you've had fever, you will not be able to deliver the lecture well, and I take lots of medicines and I take lots of water and I come here, and for that 1 hour my delivery is spotless, even though I may not be able to talk for the next full day. But when I come here to deliver this lecture, my delivery comes across as nice, and it seems that I have put in a lot of work, I have prepared, and the co-actor feels, arey, she had fever, she had a bad throat, she had infection in her throat, and she is still able to talk as if nothing has happened. So I am violating the co-actor's negative expectancies. You listen to me and you say, last time she had a bad throat. And you don't know how fast paced these lectures are, but my lectures are usually, the recording happens after every 2 or 3 days. So when you listen to, say, between lecture 3 and 4, there was a gap of only 2 days, and I could have been busy or I could have fallen sick during that time, but I'm still able to come here and deliver this lecture. And if you think that I have done a good job, then you will say, well, I did not expect her to do such a good job, and I have violated your negative expectation from me. So that will leave a positive impression in your mind about my competence. Okay, you will say that she was prepared, or she could have, if she is able to do this well even when she is sick, how well will she do when she is really not sick and everything is going in her favor. So that is what we mean by actor's normative violation of the co-actor's negative expectancies. The third point here is the actor's fulfillment of the co-actor's prototype expectancies. Okay. So I was talking to you about doctors and lawyers earlier. Now the co-actor has a certain expectation from the group or the community that I represent. So you will probably, I'll give you another example. I told you about doctors and lawyers. Well, that is one example, that doctors will be good. So all doctors will be good. So if you're a doctor and you are asked to talk about talking to patients, you will be good. You'll do an excellent job of it because you're talking to patients every day. Another thing is that maybe I'm representing IIT Kharagpur here. So you will say, well, she is at a school as reputed as IIT Kharagpur, and if I'm able to deliver a lecture that you feel is in line with what you expect of an IIT Kharagpur faculty, then I have fulfilled your competence prototype expectancy. I have fulfilled your expectation of an IIT faculty. So if I do that, then you will perceive me as a competent communicator. You will say she is representing IIT Kharagpur, and if she is able to talk, or if she is able to give us something that only an IIT professor could give, that, you know, that reflects a lot of thought, a lot of hard work, a lot of in-depth research, then you will say, okay, she has performed up to the level of the expectation we had from her as a representative, not from her as Aradhana Malik, but from her as a representative of the IIT community. So that is what this point is all about. The next point is the actor's normative reciprocity of positive effect and compensation of negative effect. And this is a little, this is actually very simple things just given to you in very difficult words. What this point really talks about is when we reciprocate positive effect, which means that when the actor responds positively to a positive message and compensates for the negativity in a message, then the actor is found to be or thought to be competent in the co-actor's message. So that is really what the episodic system is all about. The next is the relational system, and in the relational system we we talked about this earlier, that the relational system includes those components that assist a person's competence across the entire span of relationships rather than in just a given episode of interaction. So, which means that in a relational system we are really trying to see how competent the actor is across a span of interactions in that relationship with the actor, with the co-actor. Relational competence is dependent upon the level of, it is defined as the level of communicative quality in an established relationship, and it is in fact the index of the mutual adaptation and satisfaction achieved by a relationship. And when we say mutual, we are really referring to the adaptation by both the actor and the co-actor, and the satisfaction achieved by both the co-actor and the actor in that relationship. And if we were to measure it in numerical terms, and if those numbers went up, then it really reflects how well we both are adapted to that relationship, to the interaction in that relationship, and the satisfaction achieved by the interactions as a result of that relationship. The relational system is dependent upon the mutual fulfillment of autonomy and intimacy. So, how well are we able to balance keeping our individualism, keeping our own individual identities and our connection with each other. So, mutual fulfillment of who I am outside of me and you and inside of me and you, that whole relationship. Mutual attraction, as the mutual attraction goes up, the relational competence goes up. So, the more fulfilled we feel about being autonomous and intimate, the more competent we are perceived to be in that relationship. Then if there is mutual attraction between the actor and the co-actor, and if that goes up, it is perceived to be a significant indicator of positive, of competence in that relationship. Mutual trust, if the trust in a relationship goes up, then it is again perceived to be a significant indicator of the relational competence. Access to social support is another indicator, how well we are able to access the social support of maybe each other's, at least how well we are able to garner the social support from our environments is another indicator of our relational competence. And the last point here is relational network integration. If the interactions between the actor and the co-actor lead to the amount of overlap or the amount of integration between the personal networks of the actor and the co-actor defines the relational competence of the actor and the co-actor. We could be competent, and if our personal networks start merging with each other, and if we feel comfortable in each other's environments, if we feel comfortable and connected to the people in each other's environment, then we can say that the relational competence has gone up. Now, a few words of caution by Spitzberg himself in the interpretation and use of the model of intercultural competence. The first thing here that Spitzberg cautions us about is that the suggestions presented in this model are not applicable in extremes, which means that if you are very, very highly motivated, you may do things that are not appropriate for a situation. Okay? If you are too alter-centric, it may work against you, because the person, you may be perceived as having low self-respect. If you are totally focusing on the other person and you don't sort of pay any attention to your needs, and you're always looking after the other person's interests, it might have a potential to go against you. I'm not saying it will, but you have to assess the situation and see. Again, these things may or may not be applicable in extremes. The suggestions presented in this model are not absolute. Everything is context specific, everything is episode specific, everything is specific to the intrapersonal context of the actor and the co-actor, and one must see these things in the right perspective. You can't take this model as the absolute model for intercultural competence. This is just a suggestion to help you interpret what is going on and make it as comfortable for you and become effective within your context. So, these things, the lists provided by Spitzberg are not absolute. They can be, lots of things can be added to them. The suggestions made by Spitzberg about the episode of interaction are not absolute, but this is something that personally, from whatever I know of communication, this makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope it makes some sense to you also. But it helps you get an idea of how interactions happen. It is not a simple sending of a message and interpretation. It is this collision, it is this interaction, it is this matching, it's this interlinking of the contexts, intra and interpersonal contexts of the sender and the receiver of the message, or actor and co-actor. Let's not even say sender and receiver, because both the parties are constantly sending non-verbal messages. We will talk about that when we talk about non-verbal communication. Okay. The next thing I will talk about today is identity, and I did not put the word identity in the title because identity, the definitions of identity that we cover in this class are going to be, or the aspects of identity we explore in this class are only going to be the aspects that relate directly to your competence as a communicator. Identity itself is a big field that lots of people have done their PhDs on, that lots of people are exploring through their work. So, we can't really go into identity, a full-fledged lecture on identity, but I will take those aspects of identity that relate to communicative competence, especially in international and intercultural business communication. And I want you to start thinking about what is really happening here and why am I talking about these things. I want you to focus on this model a little bit. This is not a model, this is just a suggestion about the interaction between culture and communication. So, just take maybe a few seconds to read this and try and understand what this means. Okay, you see two arrows here. You see culture going into communication and you see communication going into culture. What do you think this is? What do you think this is signifying here? This signifies that culture defines how you communicate, culture defines how competent you are, how you are perceived as a communicator, or how you are perceived, how your competence is perceived, and communication in turn defines culture. How you send your messages into your interpersonal environment will define the culture of your interpersonal environment, will define how things start changing. This is really what change is all about. We talk about constant change in our social environments. We talk about constant change in our interpersonal environments. Just to give you an example, if you're in India, you would have seen this, there's a very stark difference between the way your parents speak to your grandparents, the kind of communication they have with their own parents, the kind of communication, the kind of relationship they share with their parents. The love is no less. Please don't misunderstand me. The love between parents and children is the same, you know, everybody is very protective. But the communication your parents have with their parents is very different from the communication you have with your parents. Okay, you are living in the same place, and those of you who have lived for generations in the same place, I know of several families that have lived in Delhi all their lives. So, you know, grandparents settled down in Delhi, and then the parents grew up there, and their kids grew up there, and the kids are growing up there. So, you know, it's the same Delhi, it is similar colonies. Similarly for Bombay, I know several generations of families that have been living in Bombay or Calcutta or Madras or Bangalore or Ahmedabad or Amritsar or any other place. You know, you have lived there for generations. Why? Because the city provides enough opportunities for growth and you don't really feel the need to move out. A person like me who comes from a small town needed to move out. So I have been to different places, but there are families that, even in my hometown, there are families that have lived there for generations. So it is the same place, it is the same geographical location. What has changed about it? If it's the same place, if it's the same kind of people you're dealing with, so the tailor who used to stitch your grandparents' clothes had children who became tailors and who are stitching your family's clothes, and soon their children will also probably take up the same profession. Or the lawyer, the person who looked after your grandparents' legal matters, had kids, and some of those children became lawyers and they started looking after your family's legal affairs, and now those people have children who are now going into law again. Or medicine, these are some of the professions that are sort of generational. And I have some people in my family, so they're like doctors in fifth generation doctors are coming up now. So it's the same clinic, same people, similar relationships. Then what has changed? Why have our communication styles changed? This is what is really causing the change. This thing right here. Culture is feeding into communication, and communication is influencing the culture it is happening in. Okay, so that is why the study of culture is absolutely essential. You cannot separate culture and communication. Communication cannot be anything but intercultural, and communication is constantly influencing the culture of a place you're in. And the reason I'm telling you this is that one more thing that culture and communication are influencing is identity. Okay, now individuals are interacting. You are interacting with your environments. Your environment is interacting with you and other units in your environment. So what really is identity? Let's see a few concepts here. Your identity is a constant set of attitudes that defines who you are. I am so and so. Your self schema is a generalization about the self derived from past experience that organizes and guides your understanding of the information you learn about yourself from interacting with others. I know I am this, but I am getting these things from the environment. So based on the feedback I am getting from my environment, I formed an impression about myself, and that is my self schema. It is my picture of me in my mind. Okay? Your gender identity is your fundamental sense of your maleness or femaleness. So it has nothing to do with your physiological gender. It has, we say you're tomboyish, or you're too crude, or too there are several men and we say you're just too soft for a man, or you're too pliable for a man. You need to be more strict, you need to be more determined. And as far as a woman is concerned, we say if a woman voices her concerns, of course, these things are changing. But in traditional settings, you're a girl, you shouldn't be talking loudly, you shouldn't be laughing loudly, you shouldn't be spitting, you shouldn't be cursing, all these things. So gender identity, I am an Indian woman, I am a woman. Okay, so that's my identity. Okay, your ethnic identity is your sense of belonging to one particular ethnic group. I am an Indian, I belong to a Punjabi family. Even though I never really lived in Punjab, I've lived in Punjab for maybe 4 or 5 months, and Chandigarh cannot be, Chandigarh is on the border of Punjab and Haryana, so I've lived in Chandigarh for 5 years. But otherwise, I grew up in Himachal, so I think that I'm a Himachali, but I belong to a Punjabi family, so those Punjabi traits are in me. The way I speak is very Punjabi in nature. And of course, when I go out of India, it's like, you are an Indian, or we call ourselves Desis, which is South Asians, which is, we are all part of the same flock. So I'm an Indian when I'm outside. When I'm in a totally different situation, anyone from South Asia would seem very familiar to me. So a Sri Lankan, a Bangladeshi, a Nepali, Pakistani, maybe even a Burmese person would seem more similar to me. And that is the ethnic identity. I am a South Asian. When I'm, say, maybe in a far-flung place like maybe Hungary, or Romania or Iceland or someplace, then you know anyone who looks remotely similar to South Asia will be, or even an Asian, even another, I am a foreigner, that would be my ethnic identity. I am not Icelandic, I am an outsider here. So I've never been to Iceland, I would really like to visit at some point, but this is where my ethnic identity comes in. Self-acceptance is a high regard for yourself, or conversely a lack of cynicism about yourself. Some of us are in the habit of saying, okay, I am always doing wrong, I am the bad person, I am the one who made a mistake, I am the one because of who things are going wrong, and that is sort of, you know, and some of us do that in order to convince ourselves that we need to improve upon whatever we are doing. But at some point one has to accept oneself and say, you know what, I am who I am and I am going to be better at whatever I can do, but these are my limits, and within these limits I am accepting whatever I am, and I respect myself, and I am not going to be too hard on myself and say that everything about me is bad. So there are some positive things about me, and I will make sure that I hold on to those positive things and move on. So that is self-acceptance. Now these are the different things that contribute to our identity. The cultural identity, according to Dr. Mary Jane Collier, who was a professor at the University of Denver. She was my teacher also, and if she is listening, thank you very much for teaching me these things. But this is from a paper she contributed to the book I told you about, which is the Reader on Intercultural Communication by Samavaran Porter. And in this paper she talks about the cultural identity, and according to Dr. Collier, the cultural identity is the particular character of the group communication system that emerges in the particular situation. So it is the group communication system, it is that character of the group communication system that comes out in a particular situation. And the social psychological perspectives view identity as a characteristic of the person and personality, and the self as centered in social roles and social practices. And the communication perspective views identity as something that emerges when messages are exchanged between persons. And let's see what these two things are. So according to the social psychological perspective, the characteristic of the person and the personality of a person define the cultural identity of that person, and the position of the person as centered in social roles and social practices. So this person is unique, but is a part of this particular social system, and that is what social psychological perspective says, that this person's identity is determined by who this person is and what this person's position is in social roles and social practices. According to the communication perspective, identity is something that emerges when messages are exchanged between persons. So according to the communication perspective, identity is socially constructed. Identity is something that comes out. That is something that is inherent in you. It's not socially constructed. It is something that comes out when messages are exchanged. Your inherent characteristics, or the parts about you, or the aspects of your personality that emerge when messages are exchanged between persons. Identity is defined as an enactment of cultural communication. So cultural communication is enacted through the identities of people. I am a unit of a culture, and if I am communicating, I am giving out some information about that culture, and this sending out information, this enacting from a different culture is my identity. It defines my identity. Properties of cultural identity. There are some properties. The first one is self-perception and avowal. Avowal is, this is who I am. Ascription is, this is who others think I am. So that both of these things contribute to my perception of myself. The modes of expression of cultural identity is another property of cultural identity, and in the modes of expression, We have core symbols, which are central ideas and concepts and the everyday behaviors that characterize membership in that cultural group. So, the things that because of which I feel affiliated to a particular group. I like curry and rice. So, when I say I like curry and rice and I like tandoori chicken, people will say, okay, that's a very Punjabi trait. You like rajma rice, you like kadhi and rice. Kadhi is not to be mixed with curry. It is a special kind of Punjabi dish that's of course made in other parts also. But for those of you who are not from India, I'll just explain a little bit. It's made with yogurt and it's got fritters in it, and yogurt and turmeric and all those things are mixed up, and so it's, and those of you who know curry will probably be visualizing this in your mind or probably be eating it while listening to this lecture. So curry and rice, rajma and rice, tandoori chicken, hot favorites of most Punjabi people or many Punjabi people. So, you know, that's a core symbol. I wear my dupatta like this, you know, I am wearing this dupatta and I have a certain style of wearing my dupatta. I am wearing these kadas here. So, this is an enactment. This is a central idea and concept that this is an everyday behavior, and that characterizes my membership in a particular cultural group. So, you must be a Punjabi, you are wearing these bangles, you are wearing your chunni in a certain way, you are wearing these clothes, your skin color is such, you talk with a Punjabi accent. So, you must be from a Punjabi family, and you are wearing glasses. So, of course, these days everybody wears glasses, but then, you know, that again indicates that I may be doing some fine work. So, it could be reading, it could be staring at the computer, it could be embroidery, who knows what. Okay. And if I carry a pen in my purse all the time, people will think I am a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer, because these people in these three professions are known for carrying a pen in their purses all the time. So, that is a central concept that characterizes my membership in this particular cultural. This is not a cultural group, this is a professional group, but still, you know, we can, that is a professional affiliation. The labels. Labels are terms groups use to classify and interpret these core symbols, and norms are the standards for interpreting core symbols. So, I mean, you know, we have certain standards for interpreting these symbols. So, this that will be the norms, and that is the mode of expression. Properties of cultural identity. Few more properties of cultural identity are individual, relational and communal forms of identity. I have an individual identity, I have a relational identity. I am somebody's daughter, I am somebody's teacher, I am somebody's friend, I am somebody's supervisor, I am somebody's sister, I am somebody's who knows what. So, you know, relational, we have these relations, and communal forms of identity. I belong to a particular community, I told you. So, this is one enduring and changing property of identity. The identity stays, but it also gets modified. We must understand that our identities are constantly subject, they are subject to constant change, they are dynamic, and even though some basic properties of our identities remain constant, there are certain other things that change about our identities. And affective, cognitive and behavioral components of identity define the identity of a person. So, there are certain affective components of our identities, there are some cognitive, which means related to our method of analysis, our method of thinking, the use of higher mental processes are involved, and behavioral components of identity are there. Our identity is manifested or it is expressed through our behavior, and there is content and relationship in cultural identity. So, identity is expressed through the relationship we have with people. It is expressed and modified by and influenced by what we say in our relationships, how we interact with people, all of those things, and there are salience and intensity differences. So there are differences in the salience of our identities, and there are differences in the way, the intensity with which we express our identities, or the strength with which we express our identities. Identity as a determinant of culture. How is identity? Why did I talk to you about identity? Think about it. According to Talmud in Johnson 2002, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? So we are always trying to figure out our positions in our contexts. Who am I? What am I doing? Am I doing things only for myself, or am I doing things as a part of a system? So if I am not for myself, if I don't look out for myself, if I don't protect my uniqueness, who will do it for me? But if I am only for myself, then what is the point of being me? Why am I only for myself? Then, you know, which system do I belong to? We have some basic human needs that are conflicting in nature, and we have to balance these. The first need we have is to join with others in a cooperative effort to achieve something great. We all feel that at some point in our lives we'll do something magnificent, and it's good because that thought keeps us moving. We will join with others and keep on moving towards a higher goal. The second need we have is to be a unique and a separate individual who is valued and respected in one's own right. Yes, I will be a part of a system that is moving towards a goal, that is moving towards a higher goal, but I will also be a unique individual. I will also have to maintain my uniqueness. I will also have to maintain my identity, my individualism, my individual perception of people as far as I am concerned, and I want to be respected for who I am, in addition to being respected, being valued as a member of a cooperative group. And these two needs sometimes conflict with each other, and we need to balance these things. According to Dr. Collier, cultural identity and communication competence can be defined as follows. The cultural competence is the demonstrated ability to enact a cultural identity in a mutually appropriate and effective manner. So it is a demonstrated ability, which means somebody else decides, somebody else finds out, somebody else makes the decision of whether I am able to enact a cultural identity, whether I am able to represent my cultural identity and express it in a mutually appropriate and effective manner, whether you perceive that I am doing it right and whether I am able to get the things done that I need to get done. Intercultural competence is the reinforcement of culturally different identities that are salient in the particular situation. So you constantly reinforce the culturally different identities, and they need to be stable in that the particular situation. They need to be they need to stay in that particular situation, and that is what intercultural competence is about. It is the constant reminder, the reinforcement of culturally different identities that are present in that particular situation. Okay, to end this lecture, I leave you with a question. I have given you all these fancy ideas. I won't say fancy, but I am sorry to use that word, but I have given you all these complicated notions. I have given you, I have shown you a model that was developed by Spitzberg. I have talked about that model, and I hope I have been able to get the point across, and I want you to start thinking about how this discussion on identity, this discussion on culture, this discussion on cultural identity per se are relevant to training in international business communication. I want you to think about why I shared all this information with you, why do I want you to know all this, and how will it help you in your training in international business communication. Thank you.